What's up, everybody? It's been another month already and I watched a ton of stuff, so here's everything I watched in January. Now before we get into it, I do want to say two things real quick. First off, I have a new film coming out February 14th here on YouTube. It is a found footage movie I made with my wife on our anniversary, I should say. That is a $4 found footage movie that I hope you'll enjoy, called New Folder. Also, I am currently working on a documentary that is something that I've been working on since last April, and it's something that I'm kind of putting a lot of my time and focus into, so, you know, uploads may be a little bit sporadic, but here's everything I watched in January. In theaters, I only watched one movie this year, and that was this month, and that was Poor Things. Now, I did an entire huge video on this, talking about really my thoughts about it, and I kind of stand by those thoughts. If you want to see that full opinion or that full review, there will be a link in the description, probably, where you can go check that out. I think the movie's a 6 out of 10. The more I've thought about it, the stronger I feel about it being a 6 or maybe a 6.5. But I will say, outside of talking about it for that video and a few times with my friends, I have rarely thought about this movie. So 6 out of 10 for Poor Things. Now on to things that I streamed this month. I kind of have, like, I'm breaking this up into like weird categories for how I went about this month of like streaming things. Something I've been wanting to do is go back and watch a lot of the Disney animated ones that I haven't seen yet, a lot of the Disney animated features I haven't seen yet, and we kind of watched a good handful of them this month. One of those being Brother Bear. This is one from 2003 that I've always kind of wanted to watch and just never got around to, and after watching it, it's pretty decent. The film is about Kenai, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who is a young Inuit hunter when his brother is, his brother is bared up, if that makes any sense. Well, I guess he's not bared up like Kenai is, but like, how do I say this without YouTube being mad? He got by a bear. Well, now that makes it sound worse. Eaten? No, because he wasn't eaten. How? I'm trying to, a bear, when bears do bear things and humans are involved and it ends in no more human. Yeah, kind of like that. But anyway, when Kenai goes out for revenge, he gets turned into a bear. And first off, I love the setting of this film. The animation is gorgeous. The overall tone of the film is just kind of like cutesy in a way. However, the narrative, and I honestly think the music was terrible, really left the film kind of lacking for me. Now, I know Phil Collins did the music for this, but I will say this, outside of In the Air Tonight, I haven't cared too much for Phil Collins' music. And I also think, the music was one of the weakest parts in Tarzan, so take that as you will. For the most part, I was really enjoying the themes of the story. The first two acts I really enjoyed, but the third act really kind of made the narrative fall apart for me, and I wasn't really sure how, I kind of felt like they wasn't sure how they wanted to end the story or to kind of get there naturally, so the ending felt very underwhelming. But yeah, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. It's not too bad. It's on Disney Plus if you want to watch it yourself, and also on Disney Plus is Brother Bear 2. Now, like most of the Disney straight-to-video sequels aren't very good, and while Brother Bear, I am saying that right. I keep on, what? I felt like saying Brother Bear, that wasn't right, but I guess it is right. While Brother Bear 2 might be one of the better ones, that's not really saying too much. The film picks up after the first one when Nita, a younger tribal woman, is going to be married off. She basically finds out in the spirit's eyes that she's already married to the bear boy, Kenai, so she tracks him down and talking to animals along the way, when she basically falls in love with a bear. The story's just incredibly predictable. There are forced moments of character drama. The film doesn't really land very much in the comedy realm for me. I don't know why I said it so shaky like that. Kenai, though, doesn't even remotely feel like the same character. Like, I know Joaquin Phoenix didn't come back to reprise his role, but it doesn't even feel like the same character, even outside of the voice change. They don't have the same personality or anything like that, or even likability for that matter. Overall, this is mostly just like a fine straight to video sequel. It's a 4 out of 10. It's on Disney Plus if you want to watch it. It's a 4 out of 10 for me. Another one I can finally check off my list is Alice in Wonderland from 1951. Now, I had seen the Tim Burton remake, live action remake, only the first one, and I really didn't enjoy it. So I wasn't sure if I would really care that much for Alice in Wonderland from 51, and it's decent. It's a really fever dreamy kind of movie that is kind of, I would say, kind of loose with its story in a way. I think the animation is gorgeous. There's a lot of great character design. There's a lot of fun moments in its animation. But in terms of a story, when the story finally ended and wrapped up, I literally was like, okay, I really didn't have like too much to think or to say about it. Basically, Alice chases the rabbit down the rabbit hole and goes into the Wonderland. Basically, not to spoil anything, I mean, it's from 51, but it's basically a fever dream. That's basically what it is. And when the film wraps up and you're just, I don't know, I just was kind of sitting there being like, yeah, I'm glad I finally watched it, and there's moments I liked about it. Like I said, I like a lot of the designs of the movie. Like from a visual aesthetic, it's very interesting, but in terms of like a narrative story, I was kind of like, it's alright. It's a 6 out of 10. It's on Disney Plus. 6 out of 10. I also finally watched The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. This is one that always had escaped me. And I will say some of these Disney animations, there's a pretty good chance I watched as a kid and I just don't remember them. That is a very big possibility, but I really don't think I watched The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. If you don't know what this is basically 2 short films mushed together to be a pretty short feature. And I feel like that's confusing to say that. It's a feature film that is pretty short on runtime. Like it's probably closer to a short film than a traditional 90-minute feature. I don't know. Anyway, the story is basically 2 of them. It's basically Mr. Toad and The Adventures of Ichabod, or I guess, Ichabod Crane. It's it's told in very much like a storybook animation kind of way where, they're basically pulling the books off the shelf kind of thing and telling you these stories. And that's definitely a good narrative like setup. I think we'll see that a few other times. At least one I can think of. I found the Mr. Toad story to be a lot more enjoyable than the Ichabod story. I found the adventure of Mr. Toad really fun. I like the conflict that Mr. Toad gets wrapped up into. I found that a lot of the story elements was humorous, but they also really use that animation to do something very kind of clever and slapsticky. I love the scene where they break into the estate where all the weasels are. I thought that scene was really fun. Yeah, I enjoyed the Mr. Toad one, but that being said, I did enjoy the Ichabod one too, just toward the back end of it. I felt like Ichabod, it's basically a variation of Sleepy Hollow. I've just found the first part to be really slow and really dragging. I felt like they weren't really building very much up into what was going to inevitably be. I'm so bad at pronunciating. Especially coming off like the heels of Mr. Toad, that was really fast paced. I do feel like it was really slow, but it did pick up toward the end, and I did like the end. Again, they allowed the animation to have some really like fun character moments. It really helped like punctuate the characters and the humor. There's one scene where the Headless Horseman is chasing Ichabod that I thought was really great, really humorous. The film does feel like they really explore the medium for its comedic bits that were a lot of fun. It's not a bad couple short films. It's a 6 out of 10 as a whole. If I were to rate them individually, I would say Mr. Toad was probably like a 7 and Ichabod probably a 5. So I would say a 6 out of 10 in total. I also finally got to watch The Sword in the Stone. This is in Disney's back catalog of classics. Sword in the Stone was probably one of my most honestly anticipated ones to get through. I've just always wanted to watch this. I recently picked it up on VHS, and especially after loving something like The Black Cauldron that I really enjoyed, I kind of wanted more of that medieval sword and magic stuff from Disney, and bar backing off the King Arthur story that I'm already a fan of, I found this to be really disappointing. I think it was really dull, boring, very meandering of a version of King Arthur with some decent animation. This is a film to me that felt like it just repeated itself without exploring anything new or letting the characters grow, then ends with a flash of, oh, here's big moment, ta-da! The humor never landed for me. The characters are frustratingly ignorant, and for a film that's under 80 minutes, it felt more like 2 hours. I still think the animation's great. I just seen better versions of the King Arthur story, and this one's a 4 out of 10 for me. We also watched The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh from 1977. Most Disney and animated family movies kind of, for the most part, feel like a film with all ages in mind. However, with Winnie the Pooh, I didn't really feel that. The Adventures of Winnie the Pooh really felt like a Nick Jr. movie, if you know what I mean, that's aimed toward more like a toddler age. So for me, like, it really dragged on. I just like, as I was watching this, I was like, this is not aimed toward me whatsoever. This is very much a baby movie, and I don't mean that in like the sense of like, YMS calling a, what's he call baby movies normally, like Marvel movies or something. I'm saying like this is a baby movie because it's literally intended for children, like small children, like toddler children. The story is basically like a storybook move throughout the movie as it goes from scene to scene. I thought that was really cool. If you do notice, though, at least I did on Disney Plus, that some of the scenes just repeat the same words that was on a previous page, which I thought was kind of fun. But just for an adult, there's nothing for me to latch on to. I definitely think the animation's good. I think there's some good moral lessons in the stories here. It's just for a completely different demographic than what I am, and it's a 5 out of 10 for me. It's on Disney Plus. I get it, it's not for me. I'm trying to be unbiased with that 5 out of 10 being like, I definitely think there's good elements, but it's not for me. The last thing I watched on Disney Plus in our Disney marathon for this month was Valiant. This is a movie I had never heard of, and I was like, you know what? I want to watch this. And I was definitely in the right mood for Valiant. And what mood is that, you may ask? Frozen Chuck E. Cheese pizza on a late Friday night after a long work week, wanting something silly, dumb, and goofy, and that is exactly what I got. The film is about carrier pigeons during the Second World War, where a group of misfit pigeons called the F Squad trains up to become soldiers and carry out a dangerous mission. First off, I know this is from 2005, but the animation is like beyond weird looking. Constant inconsistencies with proportions. Some textures are sharp, others are definitely not. The bird designs are terrible, and every time they fly it looks absolutely goofy because they designed their wings to be more like human arms than necessarily like bird wings. So when they're like flapping around their wings, it looks more like just, basically a character flapping its arms rather than a bird flapping its wings, and it's kind of funny. The animation kind of reminds me of like those knockoff animations at the dollar store, if you know what I mean. It's a goofy underdog story with some humor that never really landed for me, but I still had like a comfortable time with this film and the pizza, and you know what? It's a 4 out of 10. It's a 4 out of 10. Now on to my next section of stuff I streamed. These are all movies from 2021 that are or were still on my watch list for 2021 movies. These are movies that I wanted to get through before I make my best of 2021 list, which I don't know when that will come out, but I'm working on it. I've been trying to churn through that list so I can get my list of best of 2021 movies. Don't hold your breath for 2022 and on up, because you're gonna... Anyway, I probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe I'll bleep that. Anyway, I watched No Sudden Move. This is on Max. It is the new Steven Soderbergh movie. It is a film about 3 criminals kidnapping a man and his family to steal planes when the job goes sideways and enter a bunch of double-crossing hidden players that kind of push the narrative along, kind of keeping you on your feet. The film does do a great job at keeping you guessing on how it will unfold. The film is a star-studded cast, and they all do a pretty great job. However, the characters feel very one-dimensional. While the film kept me guessing and also felt like it never really built any tension to sell it. At times it felt like the film might have been a little too underdramatic to sell what it's kind of presenting. Then we get to the end, and not to spoil anything, but it just felt like very quickly revealing the plot twist in a rushed manner that left the ending feeling kind of anticlimactic for me. And while I definitely still think this is a solid film that's at least worth a watch, it's a 6 out of 10. I also watched Pieces of a Woman on Netflix. This is a film about a woman having a miscarriage and the devastation that brings into not only her life, but also her family relationships and legal troubles. You spend a large chunk of the film in labor with the lead. It's a really slow-paced, drawn-out scene that's expertly done, but after that scene, I kind of felt like the film kind of lost its patience and became a little bit more of a cliff note, jumping from scene to scene without really allowing the characters to develop into those scenes. Maybe this juxtaposition wouldn't be as noticeable on a second viewing. There are some great cinematography. All the performances are fantastic, from the Oscar-nominated lead by Vanessa Kirby to Shia LaBeouf to an outstanding role by Ellen Burstyn even. Narratively though, the second and third act I just found to be less engaging, less interesting, and kind of more pushed in a way than the first act that I thought was fantastic. I will definitely be watching this again before I make my best of 2021 list. It's definitely a contender. It's a 6.5 out of 10 for me currently. Could go up to 7, could go down I guess. But it's on Netflix if you want to check it out, and that was Pieces of a Woman 2021. I also watched The Card Counter from 2021. This is a film directed by Paul Schrader that's kind of a middle piece to an unconnected trilogy, with the first film being First Reformed and then the most recent film being Master Gardener. The Card Counter follows William Tell, a professional gambler with a troubled past, when he meets Kirk with a C, and they kind of begin to play higher stake poker. This was a super simple summary for the film that explores trauma, grief, and just human horrors through self-medication. It's a pressure cooker of a film that slowly builds builds and builds and builds, and Oscar Isaac just nails the role of William Tell. The film presents gambling in a very clean way, so that if you know nothing about the games, like myself, who only really knew about blackjack, you can easily follow along with the story. The film is beautifully shot with some great choices in soundtrack, even if the original score is a little forgettable. My biggest issue just kind of comes from the character Kirk, as it kind of felt like an unnecessary jumping off point for the plot, where I felt like the entire story could still work kind of without him in a way. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. This was one that I wanted to watch just because of the cast involved and Paul Schrader, and after watching it, I haven't been able to get this movie out of my head. I keep thinking about this movie. I bought it pretty much like 2 days after watching it off of Amazon. It was pretty cheap. It was only like, I think $7.99, maybe $8.99. It's a 7.5 for me. You can watch this one on, I believe it's on Prime, it was on Tubi. I originally watched this on Tubi. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It's a 7.5 out of 10 for me. I actually liked it more than First Reformed. Could go up on a second watch, could go down, but we'll see if it makes the best of 2021 list. Probably. Another film I watched, this one I watched on Amazon, My Heart Can't Beat Unless You Tell It To. This is a dark family mystery about a brother and sister taking care of their sick younger brother by doing horrible things to others without giving too much away. This is a film that opens on a kidnapping and a murder, and it doesn't get much more cheerful than that. It's brooding and skulking while also allowing the audience to feel the emotions of the brother and sister and why they're doing what they're doing. It kind of makes you, in a way, sympathetic toward their plea, but at the same time, like, ooh, you know what I mean? The performances are great, especially by Owen Campbell, who plays the sickly sibling. The film is really well shot, but for me, this is a film that just has great pacing and a great presentation to kind of slow drip you the narrative that led to a more than satisfying ending. It's not really a horror film, but it kind of lives in that murky, dreading kind of water that I really enjoy, and I'm giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. I will definitely be rewatching it before I'm making my list, and yeah, I definitely recommend it. Another film I can finally check off is Zola. Zola is a film about a stripper meeting another stripper, getting mixed up into more than what she wanted, and based off a string of Twitter posts. Now, I want to say out of the gate, there's a lot of great style to its presentation, from constant notification alerts and the audio mix to its almost surreal at times cinematography to this almost fairy tale like telling of the story. There's a lot on a presentation level and direction that makes me want to check out some of director Janika Bravo's other work. However, the narrative and the performances is kind of what left me lacking here. The story is just full of annoying characters that make dumb decisions. A lot of performances are really one note and at times too cartoonish for the tone that certain scenes are going for. It's a lot of good style, but I just wish there was more here, and it's a 6 out of 10 for me. You can check this one out on Prime if you want to, and it's a 6 out of 10. Another film I checked off my list was Horror in the High Desert. This is, what did I watch this on originally? I think I watched this one on, because there's 2 of these movies, and one of them was on, I think, Prime, and I think the other one was on Tubi. So I could be wrong, but I think that's what it was. So yeah, you can look them up. Horror in the High Desert from 2021 is a found footage mockumentary, I guess. It's basically about a survival blogger who goes missing in the woods of Nevada. The film is set up like a mockumentary featuring found footage from the vlogger's camera. The film really sticks to its guns as a mockumentary to present, for the most part, a pretty accurate depiction of a documentary, using the found footage to try and elevate the film rather than using it as a crutch. They use appropriate sounds for what feels like the sources of audio so that they should be, and the same goes for camera quality. The narrative about the mystery in the woods along with the disappearance of the hiker is interesting. However, I found myself just out of the film. For one, the performances aren't believable at all, but feel like people reading a script, which completely shatters the illusion of the film. Then at moments, the director uses music and musical cues throughout the found footage that really cheapens the experience. It really did break the facade for me, and I was never really able to get back in there. It's a 4.5 out of 10 for me. Now, I did, because I didn't know there's a sequel, decide to just turn around and watch the sequel. That was from 2023, Horror in the High Desert 2, Minerva. See the first review. See the review on the first. This one's a 4 out of 10. I have pretty much the exact same opinion. The only difference is I do feel like it used the found footage more as a crutch to pad its runtime. I have basically the same complaints from the first movie as I do in the second movie. So they're basically kind of interchangeable. I do think the first is a bit better than the second, but yeah. Another one I watched on Netflix is Bombay Rose, that has some absolutely amazing animation that's used to bolster a really generic Romeo and Juliet style love story that meanders the plot along. The film's animation is really the star here. It's a hand-painted film that looks great as a visual style, allowing itself to use the animation in a fantastical way to add some surrealism and expression in the art that really does kind of feel just wasted on a super subpar generic plot with by-the-number characters. The music in the film felt rather generic as well. The characters don't feel original or feel like an actual character, but rather just kind of plucked out of a checklist of what a lead should be. The film is willing to present ideas of religion and cultural divide, the struggles of everyday life, but also doesn't spend time to explore these concepts past a base level, which made their significance feel shallow. It might be worth a watch for the animation, but it's definitely doing the heavy lifting, and I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. It's on Netflix if you want to check it out for yourself. I also watched Ridley Scott's House of Gucci, or House of Gucky, and more like House of Boring. Got him. Ridley Scott put out 2 movies in 2021, one of them being a banger and the other being The House of Gucci. While Lady Gaga and Adam Driver and Al Pacino all give pretty solid performances, Jared Leto gives one of the worst performances of 2021 in my opinion. The rest of the film is just bland. This doesn't feel like a Ridley Scott film, but feels like anybody could have directed it. The cinematography is basic, a lot of shot reverse shot, and I just found the pacing to be beyond sluggish, as it just pushes a very thin narrative, trying to elicit more drama and emotion than what's actually here. It's a 2 hour and 40-minute movie where we just let scenes that don't add anything to the characters linger, but then we get to the more interesting pieces of the family drama or power plays, and they just skip by those scenes like it's hopscotch, which is definitely why the runtime felt so bloated to me. It's a 3 out of 10. Not a fan of this one. I think it's on Prime. If you want to watch it yourself, I wouldn't really recommend it. I would rather recommend The Last Duel. 3 out of 10. On Hulu, I watched The Killing of Two Lovers. This is a somber drama about a couple whose separation begins to weigh down the husband and the children. The emotional counterbalance the husband has to kind of toe between working through his own emotions and protecting the kids is just really, I guess, heartbreaking would be the right word to watch. Clayne Crawford does an amazing job in the lead to bring the character to life that always feels like he's at this boiling point, which adds a certain edge to the film. The film is beautifully shot. Director Robert Mochowin, I hope I'm saying that last name right, captures such authenticity in the film's setting and characters that it really does kind of feel like a story just plucked out of real life. The film has a slower pacing for a runtime of only 85 minutes, but it allows you to kind of sulk in its emotional tone. The film moves slow, but is never slow. This is a relationship horror film, but not as a horror genre, but because of its realistic portrayal of the hardships of commitment. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Really enjoyed this one. It's on Hulu if you want to check it out yourself. Now on to the next section of stuff I've been streaming. These are Oscar nominated movies. These are, the Oscar nominations for 2024 or of the 2023 year of movies have been released, and I am far behind on movies, so I've been trying to plow through some of these, and one of the first ones I watched was American Symphony on Netflix. This is a documentary about John Baptiste as he's composing a symphony while his wife is fighting cancer. The film is really well shot and has a great aesthetic. The music in the film is outstanding, which this was nominated for a Best Original Song, and it's kind of so far my pick for Best Original Song. But the documentary kind of portrays the story a little off balanced for me. Like, the film is presenting John's musical struggles as kind of a parallel of his wife's fight for cancer, which honestly felt incredibly clashing narratively. Like, it really felt like John was off living it up while his wife was fighting this horrible disease in the background, which is probably not the case in real life, because we do get glimpses of him going through this with her together, but I do kind of feel like the film didn't really portray that balance properly to kind of give this aspect of, like, I guess, like, different opinion. It just made me feel like watching this, I really did kind of feel like, oh, this poor woman is just fighting this alone as he's just going off living it up and, composing a symphony and winning all these Grammys. That's what it kind of felt like watching it. I'm glad I watched this one, though. I do think it's a story worth watching because there are moments of inspiration. There's moments that are really great, but it's kind of like one of those one-time viewing things. Like, I don't think I'll ever watch this again. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. The Last Repair Shop is on Disney Plus, or is it No, it's on Hulu, right? Is that on both? It might be on both. The Last Repair Shop is a documentary short film recently nominated for an Oscar about a shop that repairs musical instruments for students, where the instruments and the repairs are free for the students. The film, however, is a disjointed documentary that felt like it lost focus on the main point, going off on tangents that felt like a completely different documentary. Like, it's one of those ones where if you looked away for a second and came back to it, you might think you're watching a completely different film. I understand why the film explored these paths. It's to humanize the people of the story they're telling, like those repairing the instruments and stuff, and how these instruments kind of help the kids, but it's probably because there's not enough of a story here to make it a story, so it just felt more like padding, unnecessary bloat for the information, I guess. There's a good heart here, and the documentary looks good, but it just felt like it lacked focus, and it's a 4 out of 10 for me. One of them that was nominated for Best Animated Feature, Nimona, is on Netflix. It's an animated film about a knight about to be knighted, and is framed with Minecrafting the queen, and now has to prove himself innocent with the help of a shape-shifting girl. I really like the world they have set here. It's a cool blend of futuristic and medieval that unfortunately doesn't really get explored. While the film has some cool ideas for the world, the narrative kind of dribbles down into being a derivative and predictable story that never subverted my expectations or do anything wholly original. The animation looks like a budget version of Arcane, which left kind of more originality out of the door. The film also has a sense of humor that I did not find funny and always ill-timed. The film never lets any tension or emotion build because they have to cut to some kind of lame joke that constantly undermines any time I was actually getting into the film. But yeah, this one's a 4 out of 10 for me. Pretty disappointed in this one. I thought this one would be pretty solid. It looked good in trailers, but yeah, a little disappointed with that one. Another film I watched was Rustin. This one's also on Netflix. A ton of Netflix stuff was nominated this year, like a bunch of it. This one was nominated for Best Lead Performance by Coleman Domingo. The story Rustin is a story about Bayard Rustin, who was a civil rights activist during the movement. Wow, I cannot pronounce things today at all. I can never pronounce things. I don't know why today's any different. He was someone who always preached of a peaceful protest, and the film is a very by the numbers biopic of just that. The film to me is just right down the middle because it never did anything egregious, but it never did anything to stand out either. The cinematography is bland. The film is filled with every beat and trope as other films kind of doing the same story. I personally found the editing to be kind of annoying because it pretty much just used music for every scene transition. Coleman Domingo was nominated for Best Lead Performance, and I personally don't agree with that. His performance to me always just felt like overacting. I never found it believable, but always just a performance. That's not to say it's a horrible performance either. It's just fine. This movie is just fine. It's a 5 out of 10. It's fine. On to Paramount Plus, I watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I don't know how we're this far into the Mission Impossible franchise and they're still churning out super fun popcorn blockbusters with great action and great characters. While at this point the story formula of MI is starting to feel more like Groundhog's Day in terms of overall plot, just raising the stakes. With that kind of framing, it puts Hunt on the ultimate test to save the world. That, unfortunately, much like other Part 1 films, feels like an incomplete experience because it's just kind of setting up for the second film. So despite its nearly 3-hour runtime, I didn't feel satisfied because the story just ends on a cliffhanger. This is a film that could go up on a second watch, but for now it's going to be a 6.5 out of 10. We'll see how Part 2 ties it together. But yeah, I'm fine if you want to do these Part 1 and Part 2s, but Part 1 should still feel like a complete experience. I had the same complaint with Dune, where it just feels like it ends in the middle of a story. It's I would rather just have a 5-hour movie than I would just feeling incomplete and waiting a year to get the back end of the story. That's just me though. One of the last Oscar movies I streamed on Hulu was Flamin Hot. This is a pretty basic underdog film that definitely feels like it's stretching a story on paper. The story of a janitor who created Flamin Hot chips, but what was here is actually a surprisingly human story with some whimsy that was easy to swallow. Jesse Garcia's lead performance is filled with charm that elevates the mediocrity of the rest of the film. Personally, if we're going to do any kind of swap outs in the best lead performances, Jesse Garcia is not going to be the first one to pop into my mind to replace Coleman Domingo, but in terms of the movies nominated for Oscars, maybe. I definitely think that should have went to Zac Efron, but I think Jesse Garcia's performance is better. The film kind of has this vibe of just being a solid, decently made for TV kind of movie, if that makes any sense, where Where the direction feels really soulless despite a name like Eva Longoria being behind the camera, the film hit or misses with its comedic retelling of certain scenes that had me rolling my eyes as much as it did making me chuckle. But what really saves the film from being just incredibly forgettable is the charismatic lead performance and some charm in how it tells the story. Again, like I said, the reason why I would say Jesse Garcia, potentially because of the other movies that are nominated, is that he took a movie that was incredibly average and made it better. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. I was actually pretty surprised. I went into this one expecting it to be pretty bad or just incredibly forgettable, and I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of had a good time with it. So it's a 6 out of 10. Now, before we go on to the movies that I own that I watched, these are kind of just the rest of the stuff we streamed this month. One of them being The Court Jester. This is a short film that is available on YouTube where Pauly Shore plays Ron Simmons. Yeah, and you know what? I dug Pauly Shore's performance. I think he was really good in this. I would not mind seeing more Pauly Shore being serious. I would like to see him in other stuff than this, but this just kind of honestly felt like a short film that was suited as an additional piece of material rather than being the whole material, if that makes any sense. This is a film that works as a short, but I really can't see a feature film being made out of this that wouldn't feel like it drags I don't know if gimmick's the right word, but kind of like drags out, you know what I mean? It overstays welcome in a way. Like I can't see a feature out of this because, I mean, this feels like a proof of concept rather than like a full-fledged short story, but like watching this, like I just can't see what the feature film would look like, where after like 20 minutes, it wouldn't just be like, If they do end up making a feature of this, I will watch it and maybe I'll be surprised. But yeah, like I said, I think Shore is great here. I think it's a well shot and put together short film for sure. It's available on YouTube. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. Another short film I watched is Death and Ramen. This is also available on YouTube. This is a film by Tiger G. I hope I'm saying his name right, or Tiger Ja. I like I said, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I hope I am. But this is a short film that stars Bobby Lee and Matt Jones. Bobby Lee plays a ramen chef who takes his own life, but fails the attempt when death shows up, played by Matt Jones. From there, the duo try the most divine bowl of ramen, while the chef finds his closure. The film quickly balances a lot of emotion and character depth within its brisk runtime, while Bobby Lee gives a fantastic performance. The film lingers on the edges of absurd, but also keeps it emotionally weighted to carry the themes of acceptance, forgiveness, and closure. The film is really well shot and feels like a scene cut from a larger budget feature. It's a pretty well-rounded short, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye out on what the director does next, and it's a 8 out of 10 for me. Really love this one. I watched the new Dave Chappelle special, The Dreamer. To me, Dave Chappelle is like one of the greatest comedians of all time. And while I definitely think The Dreamer is one of his weaker, like more current specials, there's still a lot of like provoking, transgressive kind of comedy here that adds a perspective into Chappelle's worldviews, while also maybe treading a little too much to familiar grounds at times. The way Chappelle can kind of come back to punchlines so organically, or the way Chappelle can capture the audience attention, carries the special, as he's just one of those figures you want to listen speak. In terms of laughter though, there wasn't too many times I found myself laughing very much outside of just like some smirking. But that's not to say this wasn't an interesting listen, and it's a 7 out of 10. A rewatch for me was Saltburn. This is a movie that I really loved, that I saw in theaters. I did a review of it back in theaters when I saw it there, and I rewatched it with my wife, and it's still 9 out of 10 for me. It's on Amazon Prime if you want to check it out yourself. I really love it. I think the cinematography is great. I think the performances are great. Saltburn holds up for me. Still 9 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. It's on Amazon Prime. Kind of the last stuff we streamed is a bunch of South Park. We've been behind on South Park for a few years. South Park's something I've watched majority of my life. I've always been a big fan of South Park. I definitely feel like South Park went through a lull for a while where it was very mid, and I really feel like, you know, really kind of stabbing at the current culture that it's been on this trend of doing has, I don't know, it's really biting commentary that I find really funny. They're able to present a lot of fun jokes. To get caught up, we watched season 25, 26, and then the specials, the Streaming War specials, part 1 and part 2, which is technically the ending season 25. Also, South Park joining the Panderverse, and South Park Not Suitable for Children, the Cred one. For me, yeah, I think these seasons have been great. I think the specials have been great. I'm at the point where I would rather just see South Park specials than brand new seasons. I think South Park is really knocking it out of the park with the specials and not necessarily the seasons. So for me, I would like to see them focus more on the specials than the seasons. In terms of the specials, I think joining the Pandaverse is good. It's like a 6 out of 10. And then for me personally, I thought the Not Suitable for Children, the Cred one, was fantastic. I mean, it's a 7 out of 10. I thought it was really good. Really, really funny. A lot of great commentary. Probably, honestly, I gave it a 7, but it's probably closer to like a 7.5. It's close to an 8. Like, there's a lot of good moments in that I thought was just really, really funny. And personally, I really enjoyed the Streaming Wars Part 1 and Part 2. I think the Streaming Wars, especially as a tailpiece to Season 25, I thought worked really, really well. In Season 26, one of my favorite episodes is the Chat GPT episode. I thought that episode was hilarious. And I really like the whole arc with Cartman and his mom in Season 25, leading into 26. I thought was really, really good as well. Really been enjoying South Park. Now on to the stuff that I own. I grabbed the wrong thing. Alright, now that I grabbed the right thing. Fargo. This is a rewatch for me while my wife had never seen it. I love Fargo. It's definitely my top 5 favorite Coen brothers, but it might be my second favorite underneath Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Really love this. I've seen it a couple times, and I also really like the show. I've only seen the first 2 seasons of the show, but I really enjoyed those first 2 seasons, and I would like to watch more of it. But yeah, Fargo, really great. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. On my 2021 list, I watched Sleep. This is a movie put out by Arrow Video that I really enjoyed. It is a German film with Sandra Hüller, if I'm saying that right, where she goes insane and her daughter goes to basically the little village to figure out what happened to her mother. Comes with a poster and stuff. While she's there, it kind of devolves into a weird fever dream. I really enjoyed it. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. I will be watching it again before I make my best of 2021 list. I think the performances are good. I think the way it builds its mystery is really interesting. I just like, there's a lucidity or a lucidness, I guess, in between its real narrative and its dream narrative that I really liked of how it kind of played between those two. Yeah, it's good. It's good. 7 out of 10, Sleep. I don't know what you can stream that on, but I bought it. On our Disney kick, we watched The Aristocats. I finally watched this. I might have seen this as a kid. I don't know. And we also watched Bath Day. Bath Day being a short film about Figaro, however you say his name, getting a bath and then going out and hanging out with street cats. And he kind of gets bullied for being clean. It's fine. It's funny. They use the animation for a lot of slapstick. It's a nice little short and pairs really nicely with The Aristocats. The Aristocats, however, is fan-freaking-tastic. I love this one. This will go up as like one of my favorite like Disney classics. I really, really liked it a lot. If you don't know what the story of it is about Duchess and her kids, or kittens, if you will, that are heirs to a massive wealth. When the butler hears that they're the heirs, he decides to take them off into the countryside and dump them, where they meet Tom O'Malley, the alley cat, who helps them come back to the mansion, basically. And it is full of a ton of hilarious slapstick. They really use the animation to fully express not only scenes of comedy, but scenes of like character emotions, how the characters, there's so much emotion and expression. There's so much expression in the characters and their animation. The animation in this is gorgeous. A lot of like hand-drawn style animation. It looks great. The scene Everybody Wants to Be a Cat is amazing. Great song. There's some great songs in this period. There might be something a little dated in this movie that I found hilarious, but outside of that, yeah, really enjoyed The Aristocats. 8 out of 10. To check off the 2021 list, I watched Raging Fire with Donnie Yen, and this was pretty mid. This is a Chinese action thriller about a detective trying to hunt down people responsible for countless deaths of his fellow policemen that was presented in a very generic story told in a very unusual way. And what I mean by this is the way the film reveals the information is completely out of order, to the point to where I felt like I was watching a sequel to the film, where they would do this big reveal and you'll go, well, who's that? And then 40 minutes later, they'll tell you who that was. And so these big reveals just feel completely out of place, where I'm just like, am I supposed to know who this is? And then it will later down the road be like, this is who this is. And it's just weird. I've never seen a film structured like that, where it's like, it's this person. You go, okay, well, who is that? We'll tell you here in a little bit. And then you watch it and you don't have this like, oh, moment. You just go, oh, okay. Like, when you had these out of order. Another thing weird that this movie does is, while there's some good action choreography, it feels like each action scene gets worse and worse as the film goes on, where like the first couple action scenes are really great, and then as the film goes on, they just get lesser and lesser, which is also weird. Like, why put your big guns out first? You know what I mean? Like, why do all your bag of tricks at the beginning? I don't know, 5 out of 10. I probably wouldn't watch it again. It definitely feels really drawn out. Felt very long. Still on that 2021 kick is Playdurizm. This is a movie I had never heard of. I found it at Half Price Books, and it looked interesting. What I mean by that is it had a lot of purple, and I was like, I like purple. So I bought it and watched it, and I'll just let this scene speak for itself.
Fucking Jabos! It's Goebbels. Yeah, fuck him too.
Yeah, that's this is a movie that feels like someone who watched Videodrome for 100 days straight, then without any realization of what the movie is about, tried to remake it. That's kind of what this feels like. Like, there's some interesting moments in this movie in terms of like, there's some good visual effects. The cinematography, while being basically like mid shots the entire movie, doesn't look bad. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad either. But like, there's definitely like some good like direction. I don't even know if that's the right word. There's some like good bits here, but in terms of the whole, yeah, not a big fan. 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10 for Playdurizm. On my 2023 or 2024 Oscars list was Past Lives. This is on sale on Amazon for $10. I was like, hell yeah, I've been wanting to see this. And I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. The film is about like the human connection, holding on to memories or yearning for something of the past. It takes two people and pulls them apart, leaving you wondering as much as the main characters if they'll ever reconnect. And what would happen if they did? What would their lives be like? There's a ton of detail in the background that's like nice little visual cues. T.O., if I'm saying that right, I don't know, I doubt I am, was a standout performance for me. As every scene, you could clearly tell what the character was thinking, and you can see him processing everything. Could also have been nominated for Best Lead Performance in my opinion, because he was fantastic. The other performances of the film, while good, didn't stand out quite as much to me. The film is well shot and has amazing pacing. There's a lot on a presentation aspect that I really enjoyed. I just wish I connected with Nora and her performance a lot more, but I still really enjoyed this film. This is a 7.5 out of 10 for me. I will definitely be watching it again and really enjoyed it. Up next is Death Rider and the House of Vampires. This is the new Glenn Danzig movie. Glenn Danzig being a goofy goober of a director that, yeah, I'm not going to say too much. I might end up making a video on Danzig's movies, and definitely Death Rider and the House of Vampires. I would have thought after Veronica, I would have thought that, you know, I've learned a lot and I'll apply what I've learned to this movie. And not really. Like, I definitely think there are some things Danzig clearly like learned from Veronica. Like, I think Veronica is a more enjoyable movie on the so bad is good spectrum than this, but I would say this is probably a better made movie than Veronica. But like, you know, that's like comparing turnips to beets. You know what I mean? It's a 2 out of 10. Next up is Godland. This is a movie that I've been wanting to see for quite a while, and I am really surprised was not nominated for a Best Foreign Film or a Best Cinematography Film, because the cinematography in this movie is insanely good. Probably some of the best of 2023 in my opinion. The film is about a Danish priest going to Iceland to build a church and start a little church community there. Along the way, being guided by Icelandians. I don't know if that's what they're actually called, but you know what I mean. Just the hardship. It should be said this is like set in like somewhere in like the 19th century. Outside of that though, you know, along the way he's like taking pictures and stuff, but like the just harsh landscape mixed with kind of the struggle, the travel really does like make him struggle with his own soul as he kind of loses hope and sight of his mission, making him kind of question everything. The film is very slow and somber with this constant dread hanging in the air. Like I said, the film is absolutely beautifully shot, and it captures the vast Icelandic landscape in a 4:3 aspect ratio. Like, I don't know how you capture that much like vastness in that narrow of a frame, but you did, and it looks amazing. My biggest hangup just comes from our lead character, as like I really did feel like the snap of the lead character came on very quickly. Like, we didn't really like get to watch him break down over time, because we spend a lot of time in this movie moving slowly with these characters, but the snap just feels like, I wouldn't say quite as as aggressive as like a light switch, but kind of. And it kind of made the story feel a lot smaller and more simplistic than what I felt like it was going for. Still though, there's a lot here I loved and plenty to chew on. I'll definitely be watching this again, and it's a 7 out of 10. I will say this, in terms of like, this is on the Janus Contemporaries list by Criterion. There's like no special features. There's a meet the filmmakers. It's an interview with the filmmaker, and that's it. Like, there's no like behind the scenes. There's no like, I mean, you get this little booklet that has just one page in it. So I do kind of feel like this contemporary release by Criterion, while cheaper than a Criterion, is still like, I don't know, it's kind of disappointing in terms of someone who likes special features. But that's a different issue. The last thing I watched is a part of my 2021 list. It is one of the more recent Criterion pickups for me, and that is This Is Not a Burial, It's a Resurrection. And this might be one of the best movies I watched in the entire month. This movie has stuck with me since I've seen it. It is an insanely great film that I can't recommend enough. It is a African film about Mantoa. She is a elderly widower who's waiting for her son to return from the gold mine when he doesn't. Now she's lost her will to live until a reservoir is being built that is going to flood her village. This is just like a harrowing, almost spiritualistic film about the hardships of life, community, and grief. Mary Twala, if I'm saying that name right, I hope I am, gives an outstanding stoic performance as she just kind of sifts through day to day. The film is beautifully shot with a haunting soundtrack that really kind of put me into the atmosphere. There's almost like this fairy tale like quality to the story and this village through the way the lens shows its scenes and how the narrative is structured that somehow also grounded the story and its people while making it seem larger in scope than in reality. And that ending, it just honestly left me silent for a while. This could definitely go up on another watch. I really enjoyed it. I think it's only for rent on Amazon, but the Criterion transfer looks amazing. To me, this is an 8.5 out of 10. Can't recommend it enough. And that are be the movies I watched in January. That is the movies I watched in January. A lot, I know. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. In terms of like gaming, what have I been playing? I did finish Super Mario RPG, and I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I had a lot of fun with it. I will say that last world and that last boss, Smithy, I found to be really obnoxious for me personally. I found it really annoying, and I did throw a little bit of a rage fit because it's very annoying how far back it sends you if you lose to Smithy, and Smithy is not easy to beat. I did beat the game. I enjoyed it overall as an experience. I had a lot of fun with it. I did like the story to it, and yeah. I don't think anymore I'm going to rate video games. I think I'm just going to say if I recommend it or don't recommend it. You know what I mean? For video games, I don't know why. I just don't feel like putting a number on it, but I would recommend Super Mario RPG. I did start playing, however, Pac-Man World Re-Pac. This is the remake or remaster, if you will, of Pac-Man World that I definitely had my issues with Pac-Man World. And Pac-Man World Re-Pac, I have the exact same issues with it, but now with even worse frame rates. I bought it on the Switch, so I don't know if this is just a Switch problem, but I feel like the frame rates don't ever run higher than 20 frames a second. It's very choppy. It does not play very smooth at all. All the wonkiness and bad design of the 3D is still there. I thought maybe with a Joy-Con, like a joystick, that your navigation would be a lot easier than the D-pad, but honestly, after playing it quite a bit, I feel like the D-pad is probably better because of how janky the 3D environment is in the game. I really did kind of expect more out of it, and I'm pretty disappointed in it. I don't know if I'm going to continue much further. I got to Anubis Rex. The last time I played the game, I got to the Clowny world and got frustrated and said, fuck it. And I'm about to say that again with the remaster, even shorter on time, which is weird because these are games that feel like they should be tailor-made for me, and I do not like them. So I don't know. I'll see if I continue on with Re-Pac. I don't have the highest expectation that I will, but we'll see. Anyway, that has been what I watched in January, and I guess what I played. Very long video, but it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to support me, you can consider becoming a Patreon or a channel member. All those links will be down in the description down below. I will be starting to stream again here shortly, so if you want to watch me stream, there's a link to my Twitch down below as well. And yeah, all the links are down below. So anyway, thanks for hanging out. I'll see you later. Bye.